I told them I couldn't answer their questions, farted audibly out of stress, and thanked them for their time. What was the worst job interview you've had? I had an interview where I knew the answers I gave were good, solid examples. I understood the technical side well. But the interviewer kept sneering, being rude and saying "really?" in a skeptical tone, and I got the distinct impression he hated me. About 20 minutes in, I thought about politely calling it a day and leaving, but in my innocence thought it would be good practice to stay. 40 minutes in, it's like a light switch goes off inside and he's the nicest guy. His eyes light up and he started hard selling the role and position to me. Introduces me to the team. The director interviews me and he and the team are lovely. Apparently, their interview technique is to be rude to see how you perform under pressure, and they'd all been observing using a camera and were impressed I remained so polite and calm throughout. They couldn't understand why I declined. Edit, to save me responding to comments. I understand pressure testing is a legitimate technique, and whilst I felt deeply uncomfortable and my gut was screaming at me to get out of there like in a nightclub when you know the creepy guy is really bad news and you need to get out, I understood that it was a possibility that is what he could have been doing. However, to add more context, they had my work history including 10 years in the ambulance services, which involves resuscitation whilst the public yell at you and threaten you. I'm used to being polite and professional whilst being harassed and threatened. Nothing spreadsheet-based, even pulling all-nighters is going to match that for pressure, and I'm well known for staying calm and composed all the time, even if I'm exploding inside. My biggest objection was not realizing I was being broadcast and hearing them discuss my reactions to my face, like I was some kind of movie actor. It felt so violating. At an interview to be a county street sweeper, guy asks me if I have a girlfriend, proceeds to rant for 5 minutes how young people don't get married anymore. Then he asks me what I want to avoid at the job. At the time I had no idea how to answer, as I'd never been asked that in an interview before. So, I ask him to clarify, to which he just repeats the question, over and over until he gets super angry that I don't know how to answer that, then asks me to leave. To this day, biggest WTF interview I've had. Interviewer, putting candy bars on the table to open the interview. Have a candy bar. Do you want Hershey's or Snickers? Me, neither, thanks. I, go ahead, pick one. I don't want any candy now, thanks. I, take one, Hershey's or Snickers. Okay, I'll take the Snickers. I, no, I want the Snickers. You take the Hershey's. No, thank you. I was interviewing for a job in Houston, and lived in Austin, about 2.5 hours away. I drove to Houston for the first round of interviews, and they said it went well and wanted to bring me in for a final interview, so I drove there again. It seemed like it went well, and they told me they had one more interview to conduct and would have a decision tomorrow. So, the next day came and went. I emailed the manager to ask if any decision had been made, nothing. Waited a couple more days, left a voicemail, nothing. Then a couple days later, I just called the main number for the company and told the receptionist why I was calling. She was like, well, someone just started in that job yesterday. They ghosted me after I drove a total of 10 hours to interview twice. Still salty about that 11 years later. Had an interview, went well. I was offering the job on the spot and accepted. The HR manager went to get the needed paperwork, came back 10 minutes later and said I must have forgot that we already filled this position. I'm sorry, but we don't have an opening. I could call you if something opens back up. I said no thank you. I told them I couldn't answer their questions, farted audibly out of stress, and thanked them for their time. My personal favorite bad interview. I had been unemployed for a bit, was desperate for a new gig. Had gained a lot of weight living off of fast food, so my good pants didn't fit me very well. I sat down in the interview chair as the person was walking around to their side of the desk. and the button of my pants popped off, did a one-hopper off of the desk, and right into their coffee cup. Swished, no clink at all. For the entire interview, they were sipping their coffee, and I was sitting there with my pants unbuttoned waiting for the big reveal. I left before they got to the bottom of their coffee, but they had to have put 2 and 2 together. This narrowly beats out the time I was offered water from a carafe at an interview, dropped it, and soaked both interviewers. At least that one wasn't as psychologically tense. Edit: no, I didn't get the job. Edit 2: yes, I should have told them. But I froze up, and they were a very talkative interviewer. I went in to apply for an administrative assistant position and the guy kept asking me questions about liking kids and are my passports up to date etc. I was so confused. Turns out what he really wanted was a nanny for his 2 young kids to travel with him and his wife back to India. I was so pissed that he wasted my time. I noped right the FCK out of there. Yeah, I have one that sticks out. I applied to a government branch as a network admin. The newspaper ad asked for a bachelor's degree. They called me into the interview. When I got there, the first thing the interviewer said was, "We wanted someone with a master's degree. Why did you apply?" Now, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they had other interviews that day and got them mixed up. SHT happens. I just informed the interviewer that the ad I applied for requested a bachelor's degree and confirmed the position I was interviewing for. No, we definitely wanted someone with a master's degree. So, again, why did you apply? If you wanted someone with a master's degree, why did you bother calling me in for an interview? You're very rude and unprofessional. Yeah, you effed up at every junction thus far, but I'm the one who's rude and unprofessional. Started as the worst and ended as the best. The beginning started like this: "I'm so sorry to have to inform you of this, but we pulled the wrong resume contact information. We didn't mean to call you in for an interview." Before leaving, the interviewer gave me a brief tour of the company grounds, because they felt so bad for wasting my time. They introduced me to the department head that I would have been working for, if that department was actually hiring. Had a great conversation and the department head was convinced that I would be an asset to them, and they hired me on the spot. Edit: just wanted to add, since this got way more attention than I thought, that I have been with this company for over 8 years now, and they are an awesome bunch of people. It was a very lucky day for me. I applied for an internship at a human rights law office. They gave me questions on the spot to debate with them, like should people accused of ARP remain anonymous until convicted, and is bribery acceptable if it's for a good cause. It was me versus a panel of 5 senior human rights lawyers for a whole hour, who just ripped me apart from start to finish. Everything I said, they made sound like the dumbest response with their rebuttals. By the end I was a nervous babbling wreck. Did not get the internship, but did appreciate the experience in retrospect. When they got back to me, they told me your resume was fantastic, so we were quite disappointed with how poor your interview was. Burn. 5 interview rounds, with the last interview round being with the CEO, all for an entry-level customer service job. During the last interview, the CEO said you weren't allowed to get sick, and you weren't allowed to leave at the end of the day until all of the work had been done. So even though the job was 8-4, the CEO said customer service reps often stayed until 6 p.m. or later. She also asked if I would be comfortable secretly reporting to her about what the customer service team is up to. I declined the job offer, and the company harassed me with emails asking why and what they did wrong. Really glad I didn't take the job. I interviewed for what was my dream job, something that I have a ton of experience in and 2 degrees, including one from literally the most prestigious school in my field. They liked me so much on my first few rounds of interviews that they asked me to fly across the country for the final one. So, I go through easily the worst travel day of my life, Arrive for my interview, and the interviewer takes one look at my resume and says, "I don't know why you came all the way out here, you aren't qualified for this." Suffice to say, I will never work there. As in any, you get some of the weirdest job interviews. It's not a professional HR rep. It's Lisa, who married her college boyfriend and works for her rich daddy. Most were just a little awkward with some inappropriate questions. Like, do you have a boyfriend or do you plan on having kids soon? One definitely stands out. I go to an interview for a family of a 16-month-old. Mom introduces herself and tells me we'll be interviewing in the nursery. I follow her and there's only one chair, the rocking chair. She tells me to sit on the ground in a not-so-nice way. It became very clear that it was symbolic for how she treats the help. She wanted to literally look down on me. I sit down and she gets her toddler out of the crib, sits in the rocking chair and immediately starts breastfeeding. I've been around a lot of breastfeeding mamas, so it wasn't that weird. But she took her top off, so she was pretty open about it. First thing she says, "I hope you're okay with this because you'll be seeing a lot it." No real hello, how's it going? Or a question. Just, get used to seeing my tits. Then she tells me we'll be conducting the interview when she's done nursing. So, for the next 15 minutes I'm just staring at her breastfeeding. Already super weird. The interview finally starts, and it goes well. She's clearly a rich spoiled girl. Asks a million questions, which is cool. Including a couple weird ones. When she's done, I go, "Can I ask some questions?" Her response is nope. Then she tells me she wants to see how I'll do with the kid. For the next 2 hours I follow her around and do what she tells me. I change diapers, give the kid a bath, fold baby clothes, put the kid down for a nap, even washed breast pump parts. And she's critiquing me on everything. She sends me on my way eventually. I actually thought I did really bad because she was angry a lot. Whatever, because I definitely did not want that job. A month later I get a phone call saying I've been hired. Starting tomorrow. I laughed out loud. I had apparently been the best candidate by far. Probably because I just took all her SHT. She had even ordered me a work uniform. Which is ridiculous. I tell her I'm not accepting and she's livid. I got messages for the next 6 months telling me how horrible I am and that I betrayed her. And others telling me I can still take the job. It was my best interview. Great rapport with the interviewer. Gave me the job on the spot. It for a transfer to QA at Johnson Control. Came into work the next day to have the offer rescinded. The job was already given to the plant manager's niece and it had only been posted because of company policy. The story is much longer and complicated afterward, but it was the first of several times I had been promoted, different companies, and then been told, never mind. Edit, appreciate the replies and awards. Feel like I won Reddit today. Edit, wow. Johnson Controls is really not well liked. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more quality content. Leave a comment if you have any suggestions. Goodbye.